Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about planning. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, did you plan your next day the previous evening? Nope. It is pretty much a miracle if I even think more than a day or two ahead in time. I usually don't put much effort into thinking about the micro things. I have some there is an exception to this rule, and that is if I'm working on something that I find interesting or something like that. I usually reflect more on goals and what I need to do in order to reach those goals. And at this point, I don't even think about the software I'm writing now, unless it's, as I said, some very specific task I'm working on or something like that, where I know for an example, one thing I like to do is that because I know myself well enough that I might come up with an idea or remember I'm supposed to be doing something that I have forgotten about. And what I usually do is that I send myself an email to my work email from my phone, and then basically just as a reminder, remember to add tests for security or make sure that you like update A, B, and C or something like that, or make sure that you don't forget that your manager said that he or she needs like a thing at some point, right? This is what I usually do, but I don't really plan much what I'm gonna do. As I said, it's more macro stuff where I know, for example, that right now I know that during this weekend, on the Friday before the weekend, I had a conversation with my manager, and basically they wanted to revive an idea I had when I started my position at the current company, and because I basically pitched an idea which was nothing massive like fancy or anything like that. It's pretty standard stuff for most companies, but in this specific company it wasn't working out all that well, and I didn't get any traction on it. And so basically it's only now a lot later where my manager wants to see, well, maybe we can give it another try. And in those sort of situations I know that, okay, so now I need to do A, B, and C. So to give you a very short description of what I need to do. The first thing is I knew on the Friday is that, okay, so on Monday I'm going to need to put together a presentation because I'm going to work with a bunch of people who have no idea what we do or like why this is useful or so forth and so forth, because the decision making power is in the hands of non-technical people, which now means that there has to be a presentation. Go figure. So I know that on that presentation I need to do A, B, and C. Like I need to make a decent pitch. I need to present some arguments. What are the main arguments? Sort of map out roughly what I want to say with said presentation. And then I want to also like prepare. In this case, there's not much in terms of counter arguments or anything like that, because there's like very little reason why we wouldn't be doing it or so forth. The only counter I have would be from people who have a vested interest in continuing doing the thing that we're already doing, and they're probably not going to be in the conversation to begin with. So settling this thing wouldn't be all that difficult, I think. But that's the sort of stuff that I think about, and then basically I know that once that is done, I know that the next thing I need to do is to take, because even if I get the buy-in, now I have to make it happen as well. And then I know that, all right, I'm going to need to add a few components. Like in this case, we're talking about a standard component library for UI components. That's why for me this is sort of obvious stuff, because literally every single major company that I've ever worked for or ever talked to has some ongoing initiative for standardizing their UI components. And I can count on my 5 fingers how many times I've worked for or even talked to a company who did that well. It's very difficult, and this company I'm working for is no exception. And so basically I now know that, all right, so once I get the buy-in, because the thing that the non-technical people are going to buy into is not that this is a good technical solution, anything like that. What they're going to see is that reduce cost, improve collaboration, and remove delays and things like that sort of thing. and deduplicate work, all of these sort of benefits. So that's what I usually present. And whereas I know that the software developers will get fired up by something else and so forth, so you sort of know how to position it. And then I spend my time thinking about, all right, so what will I have to do next? I'm going to have to do A, B, and C. So first things first, we create a repository. We need to go into the design system, pull out a few of the major action components, and then I know roughly that, right, that's going to be a button, links, things of that nature, forms, input fields, and so forth, because nobody's going to want to use a standard component library unless those things are there. I even like they have to basically always be there. And then I usually say, all right, then the next thing is we need to prove that we can handle high complexity or something similar, which means usually the navigation bar or something similar like that in a UI world. And then of course we need to make it presentable and cool, because if people feel like if it gets the sensation of that this feels unprofessional or ad hoc, they're not going to take it as seriously as if you have nice images and like nice documentation and ideally a storybook or something like that, where they can sort of see the UI and like play around with the components and stuff like that. And then you need to set up so that the various developers can pull it down like an npm package or a yarn package or what have you somewhere, so that they can sort of use it as they want. And then the major thing will become that, which is the thing I'm still pondering, and that's basically the kiss of death, or the thing that makes the whole thing work, is can I get a hold of everybody in the entire organization? Because once I have the buy-in, that doesn't matter. Anybody who's ever done this, correct me if I'm wrong. The reason I argue that you usually have more than one of those initiatives going is because every department does it on their own area, in their own area. This has happened in this company as well. Like they're trying to standardize on one standard, but they can't because there is no spread across the organization, and there are no like cross department collaborations or anything like that going on. And that's why I know that I need to deal with the main thing, because usually if you can get the right head honcho, the right hippo, basically they can connect with all of the managers, so for all the teams and so forth, because those are the people who are important. The developers are usually pretty easy to sell on something when it comes to these sort of things. The tricky part is to actually make them commit to the thing, which is only usually possible either by having personal interest. As I said, that's why it usually fails, because some teams are very open to using a standard component library or like these sorts of things. They're very happy to do that, and some teams don't give a fuck and they just want to do ad hoc stuff by themselves, which means that you have like this is an all or nothing type of thing for a lot of companies if it's going to succeed properly. And that's why I'm pondering to how can I make sure that all of the engineering managers basically say to all their development teams, you are supposed to use that library that Frederick and like or whatever you decide on, right? That's what you're supposed to be using, because without a little bit of carrot stick, like a little bit of stick is going to work for some teams, a little bit of carrot are going to work for some teams and so forth. You're never going to get that to fly. It's basic politics. Same deal with anything that goes on in IRU in major IT companies. So what I want you to take away from this is that I don't plan what I'm going to do the next day. The only thing I ever can think about is ongoing macro stuff, things that I need to achieve, goals, etc., etc. And then I have vague timelines of how long I think it's going to take, or so forth and so forth. It's the same thing for like career progression or stuff like that. I know roughly what long-term goals I have, and I know, and I review in my head where I am currently in the progress of that thing. But like day-to-day stuff is really only if I really am engaged in this current problem I'm dealing with. If I have something really engaging or something that I'm really currently enjoying, like a good game, doesn't have to be work related or anything like that. When you sort of, I don't know if you ever can relate to that, but when you're sort of excited to get home so you can sit and play your game or like whatever because you want to try out that new skill or like build that cool thing that you've been trying to level up to get or something like that. Or in my case, when it comes to software development tasks, like I have some cool project or something like that where I know that, oh, yeah, it would be really cool if I can make that. Or you sort of, it's, to me, it's a little bit like having a nice hard candy where you're kind of you're putting some thought into it. It's sort of enjoyable to just sit there and like let it ferment a little bit in your head. Well, with candy, it's in your mouth, I suppose. But when you get that sensation and then you're really aching to go and get to your computer or be able to do the thing you want to do, right? But for the most part, it's very rare that I deal with anything really that keeps my interest at this point when it comes to my regular job, because I've progressed to a point now where it it's really difficult for me to find any work related task in my 9 to 5 that in any way challenge me or makes me feel like, yeah, I'm not really sure I'm gonna do this, or like where you have to, as I said, let you suck on that candy a little bit and see, what can I do here? Because like when you work for long enough, most things you do become sort of ordinary, and that's sort of how it goes. But I still do take quite some enjoyment to figure out long-term plans, because like I said, these smaller things that would happen the day after, they're very rare at this skill level that they happen. But for the large stuff that is long term, there's still a lot of planning and all of that stuff that has to go into it, and I enjoy that quite a bit. It takes up a lot of my thought process, honestly. And that is one part because it's my job, but one part also because I truly enjoy having an idea of, like, to map out big picture stuff and then make it happen as well, because I'm not one of those guys who like will put like up a PowerPoint presentation, as in my little example here. My idea is not, all right, here is a presentation and an architecture, you guys over there, you go and do it. I'm the sort of guy who, I want you to see my idea, I hope that you will like it, and then I want to be part of making it happen. Like, I will do the tasks necessary. I want to roll this thing home right. Have a great day.